Okay, hey guys, I had a dream, and it's kind of got me a little shooken up. Um, I'm thinking that if you guys had this one, it'd probably shake you up a little bit too. But I thought that maybe because of the events that unfolded in this dream, I really think that I should go ahead and post this. I wrote a transcript out of it. I really hope that there's no threat or anything in this, but it's a dream, so I mean, bear with me here. It's gonna sound a little crazy, but I think I've interpreted the meaning, and some things maybe not, but I don't know. I had this last night. It's 12/14/2011 today. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. Since this dream started out like any other dream, I had a lot of weird things that I can't remember happen. But the interesting part started when I was in an apartment building. We just moved in and we were having an issue with the place, so we chose to move up one floor. It was a rundown apartment building, and most of the tenants were in poverty, almost like Section 8 housing or something. We had, for one reason or another, decided to move from the lower floor where we were to an upper floor. And once we moved, we started to notice really big roaches. I mean, these things were huge. Yeah, it says they were huge, like the size of a sledgehammer head, which actually a little bigger. There were a couple at first, and then they just disappeared. Okay, the time seemed to pass in the dream, and we were moved in. It wasn't long before we had a small earthquake, and I felt the rumble. I said, "Whoa, what was that, an earthquake?" And all of a sudden the room started to shift, and a large one happened. I said, "Oh no, we have to get out of here now." Being 6 stories up, if the building came down, I knew we were dead. Then the building came down. The room rocked about for a moment, and then started to slowly shift direction and tilt towards the ground. The wreckage of the building came crashing down onto the street below, and after seeing a large piece crash down on me, I started to pray and blacked out. I knew that I was dead. The dream shifted, and I found myself alone, somewhere outside a city much like the one I live in, next to an old industrial-type building and in a large, empty, torn-up parking area. When I looked around, I saw through the fence surrounding the parking lot a very large skyscraper-type building, similar to the one that's being constructed now in my city, but looked very different, with bladed-type sides up and down, and the building had like gaps in the sides all the way down, but that's not very important. Anyway, also I saw, this is kind of just weird. Let's see. I saw the roller coaster. Okay, this thing was huge. You talk about Six Flags, but it'll put Six Flags to shame. Huge roller coaster. All right, and then said, sorry guys, sorry, I lost my place. It rounded about the city and went throughout the area. The scene then switched to me being inside a very fancy-looking motel that had been somehow built onto the roller coaster as a sort of train station for the roller coaster. You know how you go and the guy seats you on the roller coaster, and then he closes it and waits and, you know, starts the coaster and everybody has to wait. That kind of place is what it actually looked like. The rest of the motel consisted of winding halls and corridors with different sections of what resembled the McDonald's Playland tunnels, but large enough to run through, as well as various obstacles for a person to cross or go over and through. There were many young teenagers running through the hallways, going through each obstacle, and most disturbingly, each obstacle had a TSA agent next to it to explain the obstacle and how to cross it. Then I came to a hallway that had an agent next to a large walled machine. He said, "If you like these games and the obstacles, then you'll love our new built-in naked scanners. All the kids and anyone here has to go through this first before you can go on to any other parts of the area." As I was then told to step into the scanner. I saw the scanner first-person view as it swept across me and scanned every portion of my body, and then did a sweep beneath me looking upwards. I saw everything, and I felt as if this was a very sick person running the machine. I could hear him laughing the entire time. I could feel a fear from the machine as if it were harming me, and I didn't know it, which I think has something to do with radiation, obviously. I continued on throughout the tunnels afterward until I came to a section that went upward and shrank in size as people were crawling through it. I was now in the prone position trying to inch my way through the tunnel. A person in front of me was stuck where a large piece of solid wood barred the center of the tube so he could not continue. He screamed, "Help! I can't get through the tunnel. Something is blocking it." I remember what felt like several minutes passed before a TSA agent reached in and removed the wooden bar blocking his way, and we continued on through the tunnel. The scene switches yet again to my grandmother and I being outside a hospital, sitting on a long, rounded, light yellow stone bench with flower beds at the top. We sat and talked for a bit, and then a woman appeared which I knew, holding the leash of a dog, a foo-foo dog. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but as she greeted us, the dream switched again to my fiancé and I sitting in a waiting room somewhere. Within moments, a well-dressed old man peering over a newspaper started talking about Obama not doing such a hot job lately, just to make conversation. I agreed and replied, "Yes, our Constitution is being shredded." He replied with something of which I can't recall. Just then, we were interrupted abruptly by two Homeland Security agents. I saw their patches on their shoulders, and I immediately identified them. We were whisked away. I remember some kind of interrogation room with a table, 2 chairs, and a glass window. Time passed very quickly at this point, and I remember seeing the well-dressed man with whom I was speaking being hauled away in cuffs as I was being led into a conference room which resembled the House of Representatives. I'm not sure if that's what that was, but it looked really, really familiar. However, instead of it being all wood, it was white and smaller, like a fancy auditorium. The seats of the room were filled with everyday people, as well as well-dressed people in suits, and Homeland Security agents numbered at least 2 per exit, armed with assault rifles and shotguns. The President, Barack Obama, stood center at the podium speaking. Strangely, he wore an all-red with gold infantry tassels on the shoulder portions of, it just looked like a cape, and it just had the little gold tassels that hang down on the shoulders. Looked very cheaply made. I don't know what this has to do with anything. As well as a red service hat. I don't know if anybody ever seen Street Fighter, and Bison wore a similar hat to what I'm talking about. I don't know. Hugo Chavez, I don't think wears anything like that. I don't know. Anyway, I remember as I was led to a seat in the conference room, I had a tear rolling down my face, and everyone in the room that sat had a look of fear about them. As I sat and listened to Obama speak to us in the room, I spotted another man across the room being led out with a with a small, sharp object in his hand. I said, "If you're going to interrogate us for such a small thing, then why is that man not being arrested for his knife?" Moments later, the man returned to the room and said, "I confessed. I couldn't follow through with it, and he was led away in cuffs." That's not the same man that I was talking to with the newspaper. Totally different guy. I don't understand what that was about. It was just really weird. Obama continued to say, Obama spoke once more and said, "Now all citizens of the United States hear me. You thought the camps weren't real. And now I'm here to tell you these past few months have all been a game of cat and mouse. I remember that very specifically. In the days of this last month, we have been working feverishly to prepare these prisons manned by Homeland Security and managed by Fema. We had several facility locations. As of today, they have been made ready, and the first camp will open. Just then, sets of double doors on both sides of the podium burst open, and agents waited on each side of the doorways. Obama continued to say the first camp will open and will be occupied with the old and the stiffs. I have no idea what that meant. I said, I thought to myself, the old and the stiffs, as well as the person next to me, and thought out loud the same. The audience at this point was outraged, and people started shouting. I stood up after everyone quieted and shouted, "You look like Stalin in that hat and cape, you liar." He replied with a pause. "What did you say?" "Excuse me." I then repeated myself. He just continued to speak. I felt a great feeling of empowerment come over me, and I then stood up again and shouted, "I'm hereby on this day placing you, Obama, under arrest for outright violation of the United States Constitution and treason against the very people who founded our nation for your acts of misappropriated power." It was then that several agents pulled me from my seat and hit me several times before cuffing me and dragging me out to a black four-door Crown Vic. I could see on my way out to the vehicle what looked like well-built prison guard towers, and a long line of razor wire topped the fence, which had large Fema banners on it. Though I could not read them, I could very clearly see the Fema emblem. When I reached the vehicle, they opened the door and tried to shove my head down into the car. I fought to keep my head up just long enough to shout, "What gives you the right?" They stopped pushing briefly. As Obama entered his vehicle, he replied, "The Constitution is dead. What's the difference?" I was then pulled into the car by a TSA lady in the back seat, and the door was slammed shut. I yelled, "Don't touch me. Where are we going?" The driver had a Homeland Security patch on his shoulder and an officer's service cap on as well. A white service cap, kind of looked naval. As did his passenger in the front seat. They looked back over their shoulders and laughed and yelled, "Tase him!" The female TSA agent then pulled out a large black taser, and I kicked the back seat of the passenger with both feet to fend off the attack. She tased my leg, and I started to pass out as she gritted her teeth at me and smiled. "You'll see where you're going," and laughed. I heard the driver say, "Tase him again, and tase his mom when we get there." I blacked out and woke up. I don't know what that last bit about tase his mom was about. Maybe it has something to do with they're going to get the families, and then, the people who resist types of things like that maybe will be picked up and, taken to the same places as their families to watch their families tortured in front of them. Who knows? But I blacked out and I woke up is the last part. And when I woke up, I didn't know what to think. I really was speechless. I wanted to tell my fiance about this dream, but she knows it's coming, and we all know that something's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, and of course, I'm not going to be in the House of Representatives or anything. This is just a dream. None of this may be real, but I think that roller coaster represents the roller coaster ride that America's fixing to have to go on. And we all act like it's fun and games now, but just wait. So, that's all I got. Thanks for listening. Glad you can at least, somehow fathom this, and even if you don't believe it, hear it. Thanks.